And now I would love to involve on stage, let's say, a representative from our partner in this marathon, that is Massimo Torero, the chief economist at FAO. I know that today has been a very intensive day also for you. We are very, very pleased to share this stage with FAO, and I would love to hear the voice of our partner in this marathon, because we all know the connection between food and earth. Today we're celebrating the earth, but there are some priorities, and this pandemic has been accelerating and showing all the biggest paradoxes we see within the food system. So, Mr. Torero, which are the priorities we need to tackle?
Thank you very much, Sarah. It's a pleasure to be here. And I think the priorities are very clear. No? We need to find a way in which we can transform the agri-food systems, and I talk of systems in plural, so that we can feed everyone. It's a human right to have access to healthy diets. And today the situation is not that, and it's far from it. We have already, before COVID-19, 690 million people undernourished, and COVID-19 will increase this number in 152 million more people, potentially. And child stunting remains unacceptable high, and overweight and obesity continues to increase in rich, poor countries alike. So the number of people living with obesity exceeded that of people in hunger in 2012. And more than 3 billion people in the world cannot afford even the cheapest healthy diet. And the current consumption patterns are also going to lead to significant environmental impacts. And this is also reflected in huge inequalities. So how we can change all this so that we can protect our earth, but especially to feed our people? And clearly we need to put very clear targets. Undernourishment has to be reduced everywhere to a maximum of 5%. Healthy diets have to be affordable for all. And overweight has to be reduced to everywhere to the levels of 15%, similar to what we had in 1980s. Obesity needs to be reduced to no more than 5% in any country, and stunting among children need to significantly improve. And we should recover the lost decade that we're going to face because of COVID-19. And one important topic is inequalities. We need to reduce inequalities. And for the planet, we need to achieve a number of carbon and land degradation neutrality, increase the efficiency in the use of water for agriculture, and we need to hit the Paris Agreement target of reducing greenhouse gas emissions to limit global climate warming between 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius. So, huge challenge. So how we can achieve that, and what we can do to try to achieve this, and this is what we are calling the agri-food system transformation, because we need to look at all the challenges, not only on achieving the access to healthy diets, but also looking at all these environmental constraints that we are facing. And I am just going to bring 3 areas where I think it will be extremely important to work. The first one is to increase resilience, and that's central, because we have to be human being centric here, and nature, and trying to assure neutrality on the impacts of nature. But to be able to provide this capacity of the system to be resilient, we need to focus on 2 areas. One is to be capable of minimizing risks. That means vulnerabilities. And the second one, to be able to cope with risks when they occur. So to minimize risk, we need to have predictive power. We need to have early warning systems. We also need to look at the One Health approach so that we avoid the problems like the one we are facing today and new potential problems. But we also need to ensure to find ways to create access to insurance and to make data more accessible. Technology, innovation, and data are central in all this. But we need to find a different way to do that, because technology normally and innovation tend towards monopolies, few companies, and that's what we see in the agricultural sector, controlling the technologies. And if we look at other sectors, for example, the cancer research, we have found that the way cancer research has evolved so fast in the last 5 or 7 years was because of this human body genomics project of cancer, which basically brought all the technologies around the world and create a common pool resource that allow us to gain synergies. We need to do something similar in innovation and technology in the case of agriculture. But we also need to cope with the risks. And that first, we need to focus on the most vulnerable through social protection programs, align incentives, improve trade and interregional trade. Short value chains and long value chains and global value chains shouldn't be on conflict. We shouldn't be polarizing. We should complement each other. And we need to build infrastructure that will allow us to reduce food loss and waste, and investments in digital technologies. So we have this concept of 4 key accelerators that we believe should achieve this: innovation, technology, and data, and real-time data, but also the concept of complements. And here comes my idea of the parallel with the cancer research. I believe that we can break this market structure, which is so concentrated, and give access to technologies and to science to all farmers. A second area where all these accelerators can play a role is the story what we are observing in aquaculture, and how aquaculture has been increasing over time, and how important it will be, because aquaculture will allow us to increase efficiency. So capture of fisheries reached a maximum global production in the mid-1980s and has remained remarkably constant since, despite much regional variations. At the same time, an old production industry, aquaculture started to grow and now matches the capture of fisheries in volume. And in our scenarios, it can even increase and surpass. And one has to remember that fish is the most efficient converter of food to flesh, because they do not regulate their temperature and life in water, thus requiring less skeleton investment. It outpaces chicken, pork, and certainly beef in their efficiency. With 1 kilogram of feed, you get 1 kilogram of fish, but the same feed will only get 150 grams of beef and 280 grams of pork. So this is clearly an example of how we can gain efficiency, increase nutrition, and access food to all needed people. A second example, which I believe is central, is to build back better, but especially focus on the infrastructure that is needed for digital technologies. We know digital technologies are central today, and it's not so expensive to achieve universal availability, not access, but universal. Everybody can have access to it with their own connection. And for example, in Africa, this could imply a maximum of $139 billion, or in average $97 billion. In total, in the world, we're talking of $2,100 billion. Compare that to the plans of reconstruction that we're doing that because of the recession. Only the reconstruction of one of the developed countries will allow us to do this enormous investment that will put everybody in the world to have access to technologies. And the final topic, where I also think we can make a huge transformation, is food loss and waste. Why? Because just the reduction of food losses, which is from the producer to the wholesale market included, will improve efficiency of the use of our natural resources, will increase, if we improve quality, for example, we will increase the price premium to farmers, and will also make us reduce emissions. And in the case of waste, we will also reduce significantly emissions, which is just a behavioral change. So again, I think there are good ways in which we can achieve what we want, but we need to start to act now, and we need to do it in such a way that is responsible also for our earth and our environment. Because if not, we won't have an environment anymore. But again, let me repeat, it needs to be people-centric. We don't want a world without people. We want a world with people, which is sustainable. Thank you very much, Tara.
Thank you so much. I would say should be people-centered, but also life-centered, because if we include life, we combine people and nature.